Today's news. IRFS employees illegally held. Journalist Enil Fethullah's life endangered. Civil society supports imprisoned youth activists. Young people condemn arrests of youth activists. Youth activists complaint not granted. Today, at about 3:30 p.m., a group of plainclothes persons stopped employees from the Institute for Reporters' Freedom and Safety, Mehman Hüseynov and Abulfat Namazov, who were traveling in a car owned by IRFS. The employees were forcefully detained when the car stopped at the traffic lights and taken to Interior Ministry Department on Fighting Organized Crime, IRFS head Emin Hüseynov told a press conference today. They were questioned about the 11 March People's Protest Day. This is a pressure on the representatives of an organization dealing with human rights. We'll take the issue to relevant agencies, Hüseynov said. Today, we were heading to the Economic University when 6 civilian-clothed, sportsman-looking persons opened the door of the IRFS car and forced us to get into 2 cars separately. Then we were taken to the Interior Ministry Department on Fighting Organized Crime. The chief of the department told me that I was leading the group which initiated the People's Protest Day. He said the group was ruled by the foreign forces and that I was the head of its Baku office. I told him that I didn't lead any group and that I'm only dealing with journalism. Then he cited some notes from my Facebook profile and asked about them. They asked me about the notifications disseminated by the youth regarding the planned meeting. I told that I was only fulfilling my journalistic activity in that campaign. The chief told me that they will find those youth and told me to inform my friends not to relax. He also said that they knew that as if we are supported by US Embassy, they related it to the US Embassy visit card they found on me, said Mehman Hüseynov. We were followed since we left the office. It was only when we stopped at a traffic light that they forced us out of the car. I questioned them why they stopped us and asked them to present their identification cards. One of them told me that he had shown it, but I hadn't seen. They claimed that I resisted the police. I told them that the cameras installed on the traffic lights could reveal if I really resisted or not. They also asked me if I had drugs on my pocket. Later they questioned about my identification, my family, IRFS chairman Emin Hüseynov, the hours when I took him to and from the office, and other IRFS employees. Then they took a statement of explanation from us and set us free, Abulfat Namazov said. It's also worth noting that the youth activist Edber Salmanlı, who disseminated notification sheets about the 11 March meeting, said at the press conference that he is being followed as well. According to him, he was being sought out for by area police on March 7th, who cited Salmanlı had cheated a woman.
Bu maskeni attım, ne kadar fikirleştim, kadın tapmadım. Saçmalı bir kadın tapmadım. Yani ondan sonra da yani bana bir iki nəfər də zəng edildilər ki, biz gedəcəksən bölməyə.
Imprisoned journalist Enil Fethullah's life is seriously endangered in prison, said Fethullah's lawyer Anar Gasimov at a press conference at the IRFS Press Center on March 7 evening after his meeting with Fethullah. Citing his life would be endangered in several prisons, including prison number 1, Fethullah had earlier requested to be transferred to prison number 9, where the former employees of law enforcement agencies were held. However, he was taken out of the Baku investigative prison at 5 p.m. March 2nd and taken to an unknown destination. After driving for about 3 hours, the car was stopped and 2 sportsman-looking persons with military uniforms got into the car. When the journalists questioned them about their identity, they had him laid down and one of them started to strangle Fethullah's neck with his foot and told him to shut up, said the lawyer, and added that Fethullah was held in isolatory cell due to his request and again notified that his life in real danger. On the 29th of December 2009, 0.223 grams of heroin was reportedly found on Fethullah in prison number 12, and on the 6th of July 2010, Fethullah was found guilty under the charge of possession of narcotics. His sentence of 2 years and 6 months in prison began on the same date. His appeal against the decision was rejected. In 2007, Enli Fethullayev, editor-in-chief of Real Azerbaijan and Gündelik Azerbaijan newspapers, was sentenced to 8.5 years in jail for threatening terrorism, amongst other charges. However, on April 22, 2010, the European Court of Human Rights ruled for his immediate release and financial compensation from the Azerbaijan government. The Azerbaijan Supreme Court plenum has only partially fulfilled the decision.
Today, civil society representatives held a press conference at the Institute for Reporters' Freedom and Safety to discuss the arrangement of rights defense for youth activist Bakhtiar Hajiev and Azerbaijan Popular Front Party youth members Jabar Savalanlı and Dayanat Babayev. East-West Studies Center head Arastun Orojlu said that the civil society condemned the recent arrests. Overwhelmed by fear due to information disseminated on social networks about the approaching March 11th, Day of the People protest, the ruling regime kicked off pressures to the youths. In recent days, we saw the arrest of 3 youth activists under political reasons. Youth activist Jabar Savalanlı was arrested under set-up narcotics charges, the same charge that had been brought against satirical poet Mirza Sakit and journalist Aynullah Fatullayev earlier. Youth activist Hajiev's arrest followed Savalanlı's immediately. The most interesting one was the arrest of youth activist who was sentenced to 10 days of administrative detention on March 4th. Though he was arrested by state-run agencies, these agencies dismissed this fact for 2 days. The arrest was only publicized on March 6th. Today, we expressed our protest against these violent acts. We will support the youth, Orojlu added. Law Education Society head lawyer Intigam Aliyev said that civil society representatives will support youths in the March 11th movement. The main target of the recent arrests in the country are the youth. The aim is to break the youth activists' persistence. Public agencies are now involved in crime themselves. We will appeal to the international organizations and demand them to put an end to double standards towards Azerbaijan. Journalist Shahvalad Chobanoglu said that the young people were detained because of their will to use their constitutional rights and hold a meeting within the legal framework. Defense Center for Freedom of Religious Faith and Conscience head Ilgar Ibrahimoglu said that young people are described as drug addicts, some are kidnapped, and religious followers are called hooligans. According to Ibrahimoglu, these steps are aimed at keeping the society in fear. IRFS head Emin Husseinov said that 2 NGOs were expelled from their office, and that similar cases can occur in Baku too. According to Peace and Democracy Institute's director, Leyla Yunus, armed forces have been brought to the city due to the approaching so-called Day of People's protest, scheduled for March 11th. On the day of protest, Yunus called for military restraint. Youth activists met today to discuss the case of Jabar Savalanlı, who was arrested last month on what is widely acknowledged to be a fabricated narcotics charge. Savalanlı's supporters claim that the arrest was politically motivated, part of the government's strategy to clamp down on young people with independent opinions. Youth committees from the main opposition parties, the Azerbaijan Popular Front Party and Musavat Party, and other independent youth groups all met in the Azerbaijan Democratic Party office. They noted that Azeri youth do not support the narcotics charge against Jabar Savalanlı. They added that this move by the government was sparked by discontent among young people. In addition, they talked about the arrest of 2 other young people, Azerbaijan Popular Front Party Youth Committee member Dayanat Babayev, charged with resistance to police, and youth activist Bakhtiar Hajiev. The assembled youth activists called upon the government to release these prisoners. Today, March 7th, the Sumgayit Court of Appeals held the complaint of arrested Azerbaijan Popular Front Party Youth Committee member Jabar Savalanlı on the procedural violation during his arrest. Judge Hamid Hamidov presided over the hearing. The court did not grant the youth activist's complaint, lawyer Anar Gasimov told Objective TV. Jabar Savalanlı was arrested on February 5th in front of his apartment building. He's being charged with possession of narcotics, which entails a sentence of up to 3 years. Police officers claim that they found 0.17 grams of marijuana on his person when they searched him. His supporters believe that Savalanlı has been arrested because of his involvement with protests against the police clampdown during an opposition protest on January 20th at the Martyrs Alley Cemetery.